Hello, this is Dieta Jones, and I want to talk with you today about organizational change. A couple of months ago, I did a keynote speech and I asked people how many people are going through change, how many people had some responsibility for ensuring the success of that change, and the number and types of changes that were happening in their organization. It was pretty overwhelming to hear some of their responses, the level and type of organizational change that's happening, the level of responsibility that people have for change, whether or not they have manager or titular kind of leadership roles in their organization, and the average number of changes that were happening in the organizations in the audience that I polled was 6. That's an awful lot of change, layer and layer and layer of changes going on all the time in our organizations that we're all trying to manage. If any of you have responsibility for leading or managing change, for in any way, shape, or form ensuring the success of some sort of change, either at your level, at your team level, or something that is impacting your organization, then you have what I consider responsibility for managing. Managers are responsible for making sure that people in the organization are able to bring their peak performance to not just the organization, but also efforts like change, efforts to get the organization from one level of great to a next level of great, even though the environment is changing and there are a lot of changing priorities, and as we continue to develop new skill sets. Now, if you are managing or leading change in any way, shape, or form, then you probably also have plenty of experience listening to what I would describe as the complaints associated with change. The number one complaint that I hear associated with change, which probably won't be a surprise to any of you, is the big C, communication. Every time I ask people, what is the one thing that could be done differently or better associated with your change process? Every single time, what people describe as communication. I drill down, and what I find almost 100% of the time is that a couple of words come up. The first one, transparency. What people want is to know not just what's changing, but how it's changing, what is the criteria to guide changing, who's responsible for the changes, how will my voice be heard and involved in this decision-making or change process, which leads me to decision-making. That's the second most common complaint that surfaces associated with change, is people not feeling clear about how decisions are made. Right, and not feeling comfortable with the way decisions are being weighed and how it has an impact on their work, which often presents itself as an equity issue. Right, so a decision being made in one part of the organization or by one group of people in the organization that has an impact on me that is unfavorable, that I did not have an opportunity to weigh in on, surfaces as an equity issue. And so that's the third issue that comes up quite a lot, is equity. How is it that we create equity as we move through change? How do we cultivate inclusive workplaces and keep engagement levels high and motivation levels high and making sure that people are and feel valued as we're going through processes that require us to be able to make decisions and be able to have decision making that's not always 100% participatory? And then the fourth is really associated with trust. The word trust comes up over and over and over again, and it's probably the trickiest of the four that I just described because it's a bit more ambiguous. How is it that we wrap our arms around a concept like trust? What does trust involve? What's missing when trust is missing? What's present when trust is missing? How do we repair trust? How do we build trust? How do we nurture trust in an environment where it currently exists, but we want to make sure not to break it? All of the sorts of things that I'm describing here are pretty typical phenomena that come up associated with leading and managing through change. Here's the tricky part. None of them, in my opinion, are specific or unique to change. All of them, in my opinion, are about process. Every single thing that I just described, communication and transparency and decision making and equity and trust, are all about the how associated with change. They're not necessarily about moving events, going from point A to point B, right? Or they're not necessarily about just in managing kind of the emotions like risk aversions or fear. It's really the how that we need to be thoughtful about. Like, how is it that we are going to help people not just move from one place to another, but also feel empowered, feel like they are well positioned, feel like they have the skill set to really succeed and be effective in this new role or in this new environment, and also to feel a sense of accountability for making sure that this change is successful and that it has stick-to-itiveness. Now, the tricky part, another tricky part associated with change is that a lot of times we just don't do change well in our organizations. And I think it's because we are underutilizing one of our most effective resources, managers. Managers don't always get described as the most sexy role in the organization, but managers, in my opinion, are the key to unleashing the potential of your organization. Managers are at the pivotal points, the intersections of the organization, right? They are interacting with, on a regular basis, the senior leaders, so they have access to the strategic thinking of the organization. And they also are influencing, on a day-to-day basis, roll up your sleeves and get the work done, the operational effectiveness of the organization. They're coaching, they're onboarding, they're giving feedback, they're helping to create an environment where people are motivated. They're really moving things along on a day-to-day basis in ways that allow for accountability and shared vision and shared approach, and for resources to be put in place day after day that allows for a successful and effective change to happen. But they aren't necessarily being utilized as such. To me, this is one of the greatest losses, and it's also a shortcoming of many of our organizations. And it's the reason why I created the Inclusive Managers Toolkit. The Inclusive Managers Toolkit is an online program. It's 8 weeks. It launches this fall, and it's really designed to make sure that you have access to a really comprehensive and robust set of learning tools and resources to make sure that you and your colleagues or your managers have what they need in order to be effective, continue their own learning, have a positive impact on their team, and also to be able to do something transformative for the organization. And when I say transformative, what I mean is a whole lot of folks, a critical mass, which is what is comprised by middle managers as well as the people that they touch, having access to a shared philosophy and shared language and shared tools and shared approach, shared resources that allow for rewards and recognition and feedback and coaching and the development of the skills that are going to be needed for your organization to be able to continue to move the needle from good to great. The Inclusive Managers Toolkit launches this fall. It is a robust schedule that has high levels of engagement and customization. I will be working directly with you and pulling from all of the experiences that I've had for 25 plus years working with leaders and managers across the globe on some of the very topics that I've described in this video. I've also included here an outline, a program overview, as well as a schedule that gives you a sense of kind of the design and flow of the experience. But I want you to know that I designed this to really reflect what the most typical pain points are for managers and for organizations, and to also really anchor you to the tools and resources that drive you towards more clearly articulating your aspiration, creating and cultivating the inclusive workplace environments that we want and need, making sure that there's opportunities to build and nurture or rebuild trust when and if that's necessary, and then really concrete tools for making sure that you have a way to deal with things like decision making and communication, and making sure that there is transparency across communication at a process level that can be scaffolded across the entire organization, as well as really practical things that encourage and reinforce your organization's desire for creating a more inclusive workforce. Things that will allow for you to bring an equity lens to your hiring and onboarding processes, that allow you to have really concrete tools and templates for giving feedback or for dealing with difficult situations, for dealing with performance reviews. So it's a ridiculously practical course. It's jam-packed with tools and resources. There's a lot of opportunity to interact directly with me and for you to customize in ways that allow the content to be immediately applicable. Please check out the program and schedule, but also check out the website, deettajones.com, or email us. Please, please, please send us an email. We'd love to enroll you right away. Our email is info@deettajones.com. We're happy to either register you individually or a whole team of colleagues or from the same organization, which is where there's really an opportunity for transformative learning that will absolutely have organization-wide impact. I look forward to working with you.